Hello and welcome to another episode of Anfield Watch. Today we're going to be talking about the new Italian wonder kid at Liverpool, Giovanni Leoni. And to do that, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Emmet Gates, an Italian football writer. Emmet, welcome to the show.
Cheers, Ben. Glad to be on the show talking all things Italian players at Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, me and Emmet are old colleagues, and I can vouch for him that he really does know his stuff when it comes to Italian football. So what can you tell us about Giovanni Leoni? Because to me, when I keep up to date. I like to think I keep up to date with young players in world football, but when I heard about his name and Liverpool being linked, to be honest with you, even I was a little bit surprised. What can you tell us about him?
I mean, he's kind of come out of nowhere in the sense that, like this time last year, not many people had heard of him. Fabio Pacchia was manager of Parma last year. Pacchia had taken Parma up from Serie B to Serie A. And I think at the time, obviously, because you're, a newly promoted team going into the top flight, surviving relegation is the name of the game. So in that sense, Pacchia, he had a youngish team, but he kind of valued experience more, especially in certain specific areas of the pitch. So Leoni never really got a look in until perhaps February or March when Pacchia was sacked after a poor, run of games. I think he'd maybe played once or twice, but it was when Christian Chivu, ex-Inter and Roma defender, joined the club as manager. Chivu had been managing Inter's Primavera, and then he got the job at Parma for basically the last 12, 13 games of the season, and Leoni was instantly put into the heart of the defence. And what you've seen is a rapid rise. Essentially, he played, 17 games in all last season. 12 or 13 of them was under Chivu, and he did so well so quickly that his stock had risen and there was talk of him leaving instantly. Inter were linked. There was a couple of teams in Italy as well, Milan, Napoli, kind of had a sniff of Leoni, but then obviously Liverpool come in and gazumped everyone. Well, I wouldn't say gazump because, I mean, it's the modern game. 40 million euros is not exactly, you're not talking top range money, but it was a price that Italian teams were not willing to pay. But just going back to Leoni a second, his rise has been so rapid, and essentially no one had heard of him, even at the beginning of this year. If you go back to January, only those with a very keen eye on young Italian players would have heard of Leoni. But he come in and he did such a stellar job, in Parma's backline, that basically Parma knew that they couldn't keep hold of him. And so it turned out. But yeah, his rise has been very, very rapid.
Yeah, I mean, I think you only have to look at it. 3 years ago, he was making his Serie C debut, and then he went on to Serie B to play for Sampdoria and then Parma, and now he's making that step to the Premier League. Do you think he is ready based on what you've seen, or is it going to be a bit of time until we really see him playing for Liverpool regularly?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of time, and he's going to need time. He's 17, 18. I think it's good that Liverpool have signed him, but I was kind of the opinion that they should have left him at Parma for another year, because like I mentioned earlier, he hasn't even had a full season of Serie A football. He's essentially had 3 months, 12, 13 games. It's a big leap to go from starting for Parma, who just about survived Serie A last season, to go to the Premier League champions. Like, the leap in quality is huge. So I do think that obviously he will gain the experience of playing with top professionals, obviously Virgil van Dijk and Salah and all the rest. But in terms of actual match experience, I do think that Liverpool should have left him at Parma for a year, or even sent him on loan to another team in Italy just to gain more experience. because I don't know how much he's going to play at Anfield, considering the competition that's around him. So, in an answer, I don't think he's ready. He has quality in abundance, but it's a big step. I'm personally, I don't think he's ready for it yet.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's an injury to Ibrahim Konate or Virgil van Dijk, you probably don't expect him to be playing a lot of minutes. But as things stands, and we're recording this on Friday afternoon, so a lot can change by the time this goes live. But at the moment, Mark Guéhi is still a possibility for Liverpool. So if he comes in, then likely Leoni's probably going to be fifth choice if Joe Gomez is fit. So in that role, maybe do you think maybe we see him at some under-21 games and play some League Cup games and sort of acclimatise to English football this season? And then looking ahead, obviously Guéhi will probably be first choice alongside Van Dijk, but Ibrahim Konate's future is up in the air. So do you think long term maybe he could replace Konate and become the third option or the backup option for Liverpool?
Yeah, I think it's very much he's gonna have to play the long game. As you said, he might get some outings in the League Cup or Liverpool's under 21s, but he's very much going to be down the pecking order. And again, he's only 18, but it is one of those cases where he will have to think of the long term, play the long game. Maybe even it could get to January and Liverpool think, actually the best option is to send him on loan to gain experience. And obviously, depending on Konate's future and where, if he stays at Liverpool or he leaves, then he may jump up the pecking order. But I can see Leoni, being maybe the fourth or fifth defender for now. Obviously, if injuries happen, which we know Ben can happen at any club at any time, then that may change. But for now, I really can't see him getting too many minutes.
I wanted to ask you about his playing style as well, because I've read in a couple of interviews he did when he was younger that he looked up to Virgil van Dijk and he kind of styles his game around the Liverpool captain. Do you see a resemblance to Van Dijk at all when you watch him play or when you've watched him play?
He struck me as a hybrid between Giorgio Chiellini and Leonardo Bonucci, in the sense that he likes the ruggedness, the rugged side of the game. Like Chiellini, he loves a tackle, he loves to get close to his man, he loves all the physicality side of defending. But on the other hand, he is like Bonucci, a bit like Van Dijk as well, where he can ping a 50-yard diagonal ball to either fullback. So I do see shades of Van Dijk in his game. Obviously, he's nowhere near the finished product that Van Dijk is, but he could get there in time. But I do see the Van Dijk influence in his game. Like I said, he's a bit of Chiellini, he's a bit of Bonucci. He's definitely one of the better Italian defenders that's emerging, of that generation, late teens. He's born in 2006. He was born several months after Italy won the World Cup. He's that young. He's only actually ever seen Italy at one World Cup. They've missed the last two. So it just highlights how young he is. So I do see elements of Van Dijk in his game. But again, it's obviously that side of his game he can grow and develop. And it'll be interesting to see if he turns out to be more like Bonucci and Van Dijk, or if he turns to be more Chiellini-esque and just kind of avoids the passing side of the game and just focuses more on the physical side, because it's hard to be both. And Van Dijk is both, but defenders like Van Dijk don't come around every day. So it'd be interesting to see how he develops in the coming years.
Well, I suppose the best way for him to develop is to learn from someone like Van Dijk and be working alongside Arne Slot as well, who is a very big devotee of this total football and defenders being able to play with the ball. So surely that can aid his development. And on top of that, I actually, I was curious about this. I did my research and I found out that he comes from a family of athletes. His parents played water polo. His brother plays water polo for Lazio. He's got an adopted brother who plays basketball in Italy's top flight. So, he comes from a sort of background of sport. So surely that will help him in terms of adjusting to Liverpool and continuing his development, having that support around him.
Yeah, exactly. And you find this with a lot of Italian players that they come from a family of athletes. Like I think of Gigi Buffon. He come from a family of athletes, and they all excelled in various sports. So it's a very common thing in Italy. And obviously, being athletic and having an athletic family, there's definitely good genes in the DNA pool. So it definitely will help him, I think. And it will be interesting to see what Liverpool do with him. Do they keep him at Anfield this year? Do they loan him out? How much playing time will he get? Because that will all play into his development and, what's to come in the future. So, but yeah, coming from a sporty family definitely does help.
Now, as of today, again, we're recording this on Friday afternoon. I don't believe there has been an official announcement for Italy's national team. Correct me if I'm wrong, Emmet.
Yeah, as of we are speaking now, Rino Gattuso hasn't named the squad.
But there are rumours that Leoni could be in the squad. There have been some suggestions, and I again did my research. If he does make his debut, he will be the second youngest ever to play for Italy in a World Cup qualifier. I think Davide Santon of Inter was the youngest. Do you think if he does make the squad, there is a possibility that he could debut?
You know what? I would say there probably is a high probability. Maybe not as a starter, but definitely coming off the bench. The problem that Italy has now is that the talent is there, but it's not being utilised in the way that it was 20, 30 years ago. Italy, especially in centre-back, don't have a lot of stellar options. Alessandro Bastoni being the main one. But if you look alongside Bastoni, you're kind of scratching your head thinking, where is the next, Cannavaro, Nesta, Chiellini, Bonucci coming from? And Leoni, in the small sample size that we have, could be that. So I don't think he would start for Italy in these qualifiers if he's called up, but I definitely do think that he will be in the squad in and around it. He could come on for some minutes, perhaps the last 10, 15 minutes of games. But I definitely do believe that if Italy qualify for next summer's World Cup, it would not surprise me if he's in the squad. Even if he doesn't play that regularly for Liverpool, just the fact that he's in that environment every day with the Premier League champions would definitely help him, in terms of making Gattuso's squad. So it wouldn't really surprise me, A, if he's called up, and B, if he gets some minutes.
Now, there's also reports and rumours of Federico Chiesa being back in the Italy squad as well. I don't think he's been in it since he joined Liverpool. So how have people perceived his time at Liverpool so far in Italy? And do you think there is a way back for him into Arne Slott's good books after that goal against Bournemouth? And he had a decent pre-season as well, scored a couple of times, looked sharp, and it seems like he is enjoying his time at Liverpool and isn't necessarily looking to leave.
Yeah, I mean, Chiesa is a tricky one in the sense that I think at the time, people thought, especially Liverpool fans, kind of with memories of Euro 2021, 2020, thought that they were getting a bargain from Juventus when he left. But I think Juventus fans were they realised that the Chiesa of that tournament was never coming back because of the cruciate ligament injury. He didn't have the same blistering turn of pace, so that ability to skip past opposing defenders like we saw in England, during that tournament. But obviously, I think people didn't realise that he would play so little at Liverpool last season. It obviously didn't help that he really didn't have a pre-season a year ago, because Juventus basically were of the attitude that, look, we don't want you anymore, we'll cast you aside. So he didn't partake in pre-season training. His fitness was probably at an all-time low. Confidence wasn't much higher. So I understand why he struggled at Liverpool, because, again, Juventus are clearly the biggest team in Italy, but Juve's quality as of now is not as good as Liverpool's. So making that, and he wasn't really even a starter for Juve towards the end. So making that leap up to Liverpool was going to be tough. I don't think people imagined he would play as little as he did in saying that, but he does look sharp. You know, he's obviously had a pre-season this summer, and he's come off the bench. He scored against Bournemouth. And I think the fact that Chiesa may be in with his shout for the Italy squad is again a test of the fact that there, especially in attacking positions, there is just a genuine lack of quality in Italy, and it is a debate that's ongoing at the minute. Why can Italy not produce really good players anymore in certain positions? And on the wings now, there's talk of, you know, why are we not producing any attacking midfielders? Why are we not producing any number 10s, any number 9s? So I think if that had been 20 years ago, Chiesa wouldn't have had a chance of getting in because he's playing so little. But the fact that Italy don't really have, you know, Gattuso doesn't have really too many options, especially out in wide areas. I think that is why Chiesa would get a second chance. And saying that, I think he still can offer something in Italy, because even though he's not as blisteringly quick as he was, he still has a turn of pace. He can still offer unpredictability. And I think if Liverpool sign Isak, then there might be a conversation where Chiesa's like, okay, I need to play ahead of the World Cup. Granted, Italy make it, of course, because they've missed the last two. But I think Chiesa would need to reckon with himself. Look, I need to play. You know, if Isak arrives, then there's going to be even less playing time. So he may still leave Liverpool, despite, you know, the promising start to the season. But I think much would depend on if Italy qualify for the World Cup and if he really wants to make it.
Yeah, I suppose that conversation will have to be had probably in January at this point, unless, again, I don't know when this will be coming out, so there might be some transfer deadline day shocker yet, some surprising, maybe one Italian club decides, you know, we fancy a bit of Chiesa. But I wanted to sort of backpedal a little bit, and I thought it was interesting that you said he's considered as a wide option for Italy, because for Liverpool, I don't think he's played many games out on the wings, really. Ever since he's come in, it seems like he's been considered as a central option, whether that is as an attacking midfielder behind the striker, which he played at Juventus in his final season, or even as a false number 9, which we saw him, you know, do at times this season or in pre-season, coming on for Hugo Ekitike, or when there was no Ekitike, coming on for Darwin Nunez. So do you think he can sort of, because he's lost that, like you said, that pace, that speed that made him so good in playing in the wide areas, do you think he's sort of refined his role now to being more of a central player and playing in those central areas?
Yeah, I think it's a consequence, obviously, of the ACL injury, because, you know, for older viewers of the show, you know, the same thing happened to Alessandro Del Piero at Juventus in the late 90s. He tore his cruciate ligament against Udinese in November 1998, and when he returned, he was never the same player, in the sense that he was almost like a left forward, you know, in a 4-3-3, and he had gained more muscle to obviously repair the knee, but he'd become a bit more cerebral. He was more a second striker, as you said, playing in behind a central striker, you know, perhaps in like a 4-4-1-1. So I do see shades of Chiesa in Del Piero, in the fact that he has lost the pace, but he may make up for it with, you know, because technically he's excellent and he can beat players, but not to the extent that he could in wider areas. So he could be an option for Gattuso and even for Liverpool this season, perhaps, if Arne Slot wants to change formation, a plan B or what have you, in that he could play just behind, you know, like the classic number 10. And there's definitely shades of Del Piero in that he has lost that pace, but he still knows, you know, when to give and go. He has a technical ability. He's got perhaps not the same vision as Del Piero for the game, but he still can operate in that way. And he did play that role in Max Allegri's last year at Juve. It was a 3-5-1-1, if memory serves. And he can score goals. He's got a nose for goal. So it is a role I could see him continuing on, and especially for Italy, in the sense that Italy really lack central attacking players. They have Lorenzo Pellegrini at Roma, but his confidence has been destroyed over the last year. And there's not really much else. You have Davide Fratesi at Inter, but he's more of a running into the box late, scoring goals. We've seen that for Inter in their Champions League run last season. So I think it is something for Gattuso to consider, using Chiesa in that role, because as you said, he doesn't really have the blistering pace of old to play on the left wing, on the right wing, run, cut in. He doesn't have it anymore. So that could be a role that he operates in, going forward. And it'd be interesting to see if Slot would use him, continually in that role. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that he will get game time this year, or do you think that if Isak arrives, that's the end of Chiesa?
I don't necessarily think it's the end of Chiesa, because Isak is quite injury prone. I don't think he will be expected to play a lot of games. Ekitike is still getting to grips with the Premier League. And on top of that, there is a chance that Harvey Elliott still leaves. So I think Chiesa could even provide a backup option to Florian Wirtz. At the same time, he can play left and right. So, Mo Salah will leave during AFCON. He could potentially fill in the right wing role. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for him. And it seems like last season, Arne Slot maybe didn't fancy him, but it seems like the pre-season that he has had, the good start to the season that he has enjoyed, although it's only been 2 games, it seems like he's won him over. So it seems like his trajectory at Liverpool is tilting in a positive direction, and I think it would be a shame if he were to go, or if Liverpool were to lose him in the final days of the window. I really do think he's still got a lot more to give, and even with Isak coming in, I think there will be opportunities for him.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, in the sense that it almost feels like Liverpool have done the hard work now, in that they've got him up to speed. He had a good pre-season, because like I said earlier, last summer Juventus essentially outcast him, and I don't know if he was training with the Primavera, the young team, but he wasn't part of the first team training. So I think that's why he arrived at Liverpool badly out of shape, out of condition. So it almost feels like Liverpool now, they've done the hard yards, they've got him up to speed, and it would be a shame if he has to leave, or, he maybe makes a return to Serie A, because I know Roma potentially are linked with him because they're trying to get Jadon Sancho, and that deal has fallen through. Napoli were kind of sniffing around as well, because Conte has been utilising a 4-3-3 at Napoli. So it would be a shame from a Liverpool perspective if they got him up to full fitness and then he leaves. But I suppose from his perspective, it's, if he's not going to make the World Cup, he has to play. And if Slot, if he has a conversation with Slot, and Slot says, look, you're not going to play too much, then it may be, they may have to part ways, at least maybe on loan for the season, or as you said, maybe get to January and reassess the situation.
Yeah, I guess we will find out, and probably the listeners will already know by now. But Emmet, I really liked your comparison to Del Piero as well. I think that's really interesting, and I hope that is a good sort of omen for Chiesa's career, because Del Piero went on to play for many, many years after his injury.
Yeah, won the World Cup with Italy in 2006. So it's not bad omens.
Exactly. So let's hope he can follow the same trajectory, and hopefully, unless something changes in the last couple of days, he will continue doing that at Liverpool. Emmet, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me today. If the listeners and the viewers want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Emmet Gates, and I also write for a website called Destination Calcio, dedicated to all things Italian football, Serie A, Serie B, bit of Serie C, bit of culture, bit of Italy, a bit of everything. So yeah, that's where the listeners can find my work.
And Liverpool fans, I definitely recommend checking that out, because as we know, Richard Hughes grew up in Italy, the club's sporting director. He's got strong connections to Italy. He's obviously made he signed 2 Italians now in the last 2 summer transfer windows. So there's always a chance Liverpool could get more players in from Serie A. So I definitely recommend checking that out. And again, thanks everyone for listening in. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel.